And welcome to the Making Hay podcast with your host, Marcia Miller. Marcia, it's so good to be with you again. It's been a while since I've seen you, so it's good to touch base with you again.
Absolutely. Hi, Bill. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm really excited about your guest today because she is conversant in what I'm calling, not you didn't do this, I did this, the contemporary 3 R's, and I know that you're going to explain what they are, but I think that they are 3 skills that are really important, especially in today's realities in terms of job markets and producing income. And with that, I'm going to let you take it away, Marcia.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. Thank you. I am very excited about today's meeting. Veterinarians, they're no strangers to hard work. Some of the hardest working people I've ever been around, putting in the longest hours with such passion. But sometimes many veterinarians feel limited by traditional career paths, especially when it comes to growing their finances and having the proper work-life balance. And today's guest shows us how stepping outside of your comfort zone can lead not only to professional fulfillment, but also to financial freedom. So I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Dr. Kathy Carrier. She's a board-certified laboratory animal veterinarian and the founder of CarrierRx. What a cool name. Kathy has more than 20 years of experience. She started working straight out of vet school, I guess, for the U.S. Army Veterinary Corps and contract research organizations, academic institutions, and animal production facilities. Boy, all that's a mouthful. Now she's the owner of her own consulting and relief business. She fills critical gaps for research and animal production facilities, while also empowering staff through one-on-one training and behavioral consulting. Dr. Carrier's story is one of resilience, risk-taking, and ultimately redefining success. So the 3 R's, both professionally and personally. And I'm so excited to dive into your journey, Dr. Carrier.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here, Marcia. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think that the way we have to start this conversation off is with the question, because I know when I met you, I didn't really understand what a laboratory animal veterinarian is. So could you explain to us, because I think even practice owners of normal clinics don't understand, veterinarians themselves don't understand what exactly you do fully. So could you share kind of what you do and more about your role and what a typical day looks like for you?
Okay, yeah. So lab animal veterinarians support all kinds of different animals that are used in research. And it could be anything from fish, rodents, so rats and mice, up to rabbits, dogs, and all the way up to primates. Basically, any animal model can potentially be used in research if they're not a species that's protected. So it's a really diverse group of animals that we work with that we are not trained on in vet school. And so during the process, these animals are used to develop and refine how to use various medicines to make sure they're going to be safe, or during the development process, or even just devices like a mesh or an implant that a hip implant. All of these things have to be tested within animals before they can be approved for use in people. And then there's a whole nother side where animals are used in what's called basic research. And that's just understanding disease processes, which right now is kind of a hot topic. Like understanding how a disease infects is really important to understand how we can create a medicine that could stop that or make it treatable. And it's not just the clinical medicine. We have a big role in the regulatory part of it, and it's a highly regulated business, obviously. And then we basically are asked pretty much anything when it comes to the animals. So people want to understand the behavior of the animal. What signs of pain will they show? How can we draw blood from them? And every species is a little bit different. So we get asked lots of questions. What can we clean with? How many hours of light should they get? So it's not just clinical medicine. It's a lot of advice and also just being the advocate for the animal. I feel like is my biggest role is being the voice for the animal, the advocate, and making sure we're doing right for that animal while it's under our care.
That's so important. So important. So you speak about being an advocate. What about people outside of vet med that claim to be animal rights, advocates? Like, I would think you're probably getting a lot of negative vibes from those people, to put it nicely. I mean, what are the misconceptions and problems around that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I would say that a lot of research facilities, we did ourselves a disservice by kind of hunkering down and not being open about what we do, about how we handle and treat the animals. And of course, the animal rights groups who are adamantly against any animal use. So they like to misconstrue what is done. And even if a facility self-reports and said, hey, we had this unfortunate incident, they will blow it up out of proportion and make it just seem all horrible. And that's unfortunately what the public hears the most about, because those groups are very vocal.
Right.
So unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there about how animals are treated, how they're used and taken care of, and how they're advancing and helping us.
Exactly. I mean,
which is really important.
The advancements in human medicine is because of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So
absolutely. We all benefit. We all benefit from these, what the animals do for us, in addition to humans, our own pets as well.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'd like to dive down. Thank you for explaining that. I'd like to dive into kind of your journey now. Like I mentioned in the introduction, you kind of started out joining the Army. Could you start from there and tell us like how your kind of career went and what led you to deciding to become self-employed?
Okay. So I kind of took a non-traditional path right out of vet school and tracked into laboratory animal medicine, which I was the only one in my class in vet school. So everyone was kind of like, what are you doing? But I absolutely fell in love with it. Just the diversity, the ever-changing work environment is why I loved it. So I started in the U.S. Army, which was a great way to start because I'm very physically active. I had really great mentors and bosses during my years in the Army. And I was all in their R&D, which is research and development within the Army. So then from there, I decided to get out of active duty because I was a single parent, and it's a struggle being a single parent in the Army. You basically sign and say, yep, my daughter's all taken care of. They essentially don't give too much about your family situation.
Right.
And then I got into what's called contract research organizations, where they do studies. They take big pharma's drug compounds and they test them, and then they give them the report back, which kind of is like a third party. That way they can't say, oh, you're manipulating the data. Mm-hmm. We give them 100% of the results, which is unbiased and essentially, the truth. And so that's very fast paced, very regulated. It's called GLPs, which is good laboratory practices, which are these very restrictive ways of basically everything has to be written down and documented so that study can be 100% reproduced. Mm-hmm. There can't be any, issues by the FDA coming back and saying, well, how did you do this? How did this, happen? It's all fully documented so they can reproduce the study and fully feel confident in those results. So then from there, I went, kind of got my transferred within that company. And this was about the early 2000s recession. Mm-hmm. And I was part of a plant closure, which was difficult. I was pretty early in my career, had just relocated my family down there, put a down payment on a house, and basically maybe 2 years into it, they're like, yeah, you don't have a job. And I did not see it coming at all. So that was, a big learning about having that financial cushion, and just understanding, that work, it's just a job, as much as I gave to that company, relocated for it. It was difficult to realize, hey, I put in 110% and you're still just kind of brushed off to the side. I mean, I get it was economic recession, but
I want to stop you there and go back to something you said about before you continue your journey. We definitely are getting to the point where you became self-employed. But a lot of young veterinarians that I talk to, like they're confused on where to go out of school, and obviously there's a shortage of veterinarians globally, probably, I know for sure in the US. And they're confused on what to do. And then they feel overwhelmed financially because most veterinarians are not getting financial education. It's not taught in school, right? And then they're
Exactly.
leaving with a lot of debt. And I know one of the things you told me earlier when we met and we're talking, it was a really smart move to join the Army because you got some student debt forgiveness.
So yeah, I left that out. So the reason I joined active duty Army was I got what's called a health professions scholarship. And this is their way of the Army recruiting in doctors and dentists and veterinarians and nurses. So we're all, upon graduation, we are kind of obligated to give the active duty time back. But as a result of that, I got 2 full years of my vet school paid for, which was
Wow.
huge. So I had half the debt of everyone else upon graduation. Plus I didn't have any worries. I knew I had a job. I didn't have to look for a job. I could just focus on school.
That's so smart. So incredibly smart. So now backing up to the journey, you've relocated your family, you've purchased a home, you're 2 years in, you're just drifting through life, working hard, giving 110% for sure,
Yeah.
but not thinking that.
Just didn't think at all they were going to close the entire facility. I thought, they're going to pull us in and say, we're going to lay some people off. So it just, was a huge devastating blow. But
Right.
the nice thing about the field I work in is it's a small group that people were like, Dr. Carrier's in that area. And another facility was just in the works of relocating their breeding colony into Arizona, which has got a good climate. The animals could be indoor, outdoor. And so it was, blessing in disguise. It gave me 2 things. I bought a house when the market was really low.
Good.
Because a lot of people got out of it. And then I had a little bit of off time. I got to really focus and study hard for my board exam. So I had the time. When I was working full time, it was a struggle to find time. And then the third thing is it just lined up for this other opportunity in my back door. So I didn't end up having to move, which was great. And so changed ships a little bit. And then that's the production animal medicine. So this was a facility that was breeding and producing animals that would be used in research. So that's kind of how I shifted out of the CRO into the animal production side of the business, so all of these different experiences then, I think has helped me succeed in what I do now. And then, so then I moved one more time. I think my Army in me was like, let's move again.
Right.
To a larger, bigger production facility. And then that was where I kind of got stuck in a non-compete. And the facility I went to was just not the right fit for me. And also for my family situation, the culture was a little bit different in the area we were living in. And I was stuck in a 2-year non-compete, which the language was pretty tough for me because it was anyone they work with or sold animals to, which is essentially my entire business where I could get a job. So I had to kind of take pause, as a mother, and as a lab animal vet and be like, what am I going to do next? And I'd always had brewing in the back of my mind of doing relief work. And I think I had mentioned to you before, I never got to use all my PTO. I was always kind of tethered to being on call. And those things right there kind of really, I can't think of anything more that ties you down to a job and makes you start to feel like you're, essentially tied to work.
Right. And burnout. Like this is how burnout happens.
Leading to burnout. And so I started to play with that idea of could I do this in the research environment? And it was scary, moving to this. I always had the comfortable salary, full benefits, and kind of going off on my own was a scary big jump.
Yeah, I mean, especially being a woman, I think I'm self-employed and have been for a long time as well, and I know how scary that is. It's terrifying, and our emotions and everything make us a little more volatile maybe than a man. But like I know my journey was like, oh, I need to go get a job. I need to get a real job. What am I doing? And then it would be the next day I would have a great day and like, oh, I can do this. So it is scary. And then you add to that being a single mom. I just admire you so much.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but how did you calm yourself?
Well, I pretty much was like, I think I need to do this. I need to pay the bills, but thankfully I had some savings set aside. So I knew I had a kind of a comfort zone of, okay, until the work starts coming in. And I did sit down and think about how can I make this work? And it may sound terrible, but like you look at the job posts all the time. And I just started to reach out to the places that I saw had multiple openings for multiple vets. So they're kind of in like a more dire need, like they're shorthanded. They definitely need a vet. And so I reached out to those recruiters and said,
Mhm.
I'm not looking for a full-time role. I can't move right now, because my daughter is in school, but I could provide some temporary relief. Here's my CV, approach the hiring manager about it. And
Mhm.
I think, again, my time within the industry, my general kind of reputation, people knew of me, and I'm already kind of within the lab field that
Right.
they're like, oh, I know of her, that may actually work. So I kicked down a lot of doors and had to keep kicking on a lot of doors,
I love it.
and finally got those first opportunities, basically providing relief work.
Yeah. And we just have to trust our own abilities. You went to school, you had so much experience, but still there's always that inner voice telling us you're not going to be able to do this. And so
Yeah.
I love that you pushed forward and you built a thriving business, actually two thriving businesses. We haven't
Yes.
talked about the second one yet. But I think one thing that stands out to me in hearing your journey is like you were able to pivot, you were able to find a specific need that needed to be filled. Like you said, you knocked on doors and said, hey, your people need to take off and I'm here to do that. But did you ever really think, hey, I'm creating a niche business and how am I going to attract clients? Because now your clients are the laboratories, uh, the research facilities
Right.
are your clients. So did you ever think through that, like in a big picture?
I mean, at the time, I really knew there was a need for it because
Uh-huh.
it was a field that was, I think everywhere was struggling to find vets. And
Mhm.
we're a smaller niche field for veterinary medicine. And generally, a lot of people have to go through additional training. Like I got board certified. Other people will I did it just for by experience route. Other people will go through residency. Well, less and less people are going into that field. So, but I feel like there still has always been a need for
Mhm.
veterinarians. And multiple vets down, people retiring that have been in the field, we just weren't, the field was struggling. And I'm like, I think that this is going to work. And
Mhm.
it was terrifying because I would go a place and they were successful and they hired somebody. And then I kept thinking, well, am I going to eventually run out of work because, well, they won't need me again. But then it kept evolving because I think I had a good success when I was there. So some facilities have brought me back just to be like the key trainer when they onboard and hire a new vet, which it's crazy to me that they would bring an outside person to be their key trainer. But I think again, training a new employee is time consuming.
Right.
So this allows the regular vets to do their job, but I can kind of take that time with that person, ease their stress, regurgitate all the knowledge I have to them, and kind of have them have a more successful onboarding and hopefully succeed and stay.
Right. And so how many years have you had your business?
4.5 years now.
4.5 years. That is mind blowing because and I hope you don't mind I share this, but when we were talking, you took a few weeks for Christmas holidays to spend time with family, which is fabulous. So you're controlling your own life. You've got a better work-life balance.
Absolutely.
But your entire 2025 calendar is 100% booked. In 4.5 years, you built this kind of business. I mean, that is incredible to me. And just like, I mean, did you ever imagine?
No, I like I told you, I was the fears were still there. Like, what am I going to have after this gig is done? Like, I always had those fears, but I think my success has been in the quality of work I provide when I'm there, that I have clients that I show back up and they're booking what they need for the following year because they want me back.
That's
a really good feeling that I'm providing what they need, what they want. They're happy with the service.
Yes.
So that makes me feel good. And no, I never would have thought I'd be in high demand as I am, Well,
I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I mean, I love people who take the risk. And so I'm just like cheering you on so big right now. And I'm so glad we've connected because it's just the happiest thing I can hear. And I want to encourage more veterinarians, if you've got an idea about something or something that you're passionate about, please take that step of faith forward. And, you're living proof if it's a testament to your career that this is a doable thing. But you also started a second business and,
yes.
I'm going to let you tell about that. I call it, is it CABS is what the acronym?
Yeah. CABS is kind of the shorthand, but no, it's not a taxi service.
Not quite. So you co-founded this with
Dr. Jim Weed, who he and I have been friends and colleagues for numerous years, and he's a phenomenal animal behaviorist.
Okay.
So it stands for Comparative Animal Behavior Solutions.
Okay.
And that, it's kind of my portfolio career. I guess I heard somebody say that the other day, and I'm like, yeah, that is kind of what I'm doing now with the multiple income streams. It's a portfolio career. So with him, that consulting business focuses only, again, on animal behavior needs within the research facilities. And it's, over the years, I saw that this is such a critical part of maintaining these animals like we do and getting them to cooperate and be less stressed out gives us better data in the end. And so many of the species we work with are incredibly intelligent and they will work. I mean, even the pigs that we use, so smart, and you can train them to walk and weigh themselves every day.
That is amazing.
And it's about giving the facilities and the staff the tools that they need to successfully have a behavior program, have behaviorist staff, and then even giving them the tools to train properly, because you can counter-train animals the wrong way. And again, really kind of elevating that bar for these facilities and saying, this is an expectation now that we do this for these animals. So
that is so cool. And so you're going in like, okay, we're going to have a quarterly program and we're going to teach the staff this. And then that's the side business, right? Your primary business is working CarrierRx.
I would say that's more kind of like consulting. My focus is generally on-site clinical work.
Okay.
But yeah, so the behavioral solutions is kind of more a site by site. What are their needs? We usually have a sit down and kind of hear what their specific needs are. One program, for example, was just bringing in a species that they had no experience with. So they knew they were going to need additional training to get ready for having that type of species and to do the right thing for those animals.
Well, I know you do have to run a business. You have business accounting, you have business things that you didn't have before, but going back to like creating, a well-balanced life, proper work-life balance and all of that. I mean, one thing you mentioned to me was that you work for 3 weeks and you take a week off.
Yeah.
And that just really struck a chord with me because and working with veterinarians, that's one of the biggest things is they just feel tired. They feel burnt out. They feel like their families are getting the worst part of them. They're lucky. If a lot of practice owners have told me like, I hope I get home in time to kiss my kid goodnight and tuck them in bed, and they're leaving early. They're getting home late. And here you just like took a step of faith. And now, I'm not saying you don't work extremely hard those 3 weeks and like have to have that week off to recover. But I just love that you were able to create those boundaries. And I'm sure that's been a process you've refined over the last 4.5 years.
Yeah. So like I said, I am usually on the road. So I found traveling and being away that long was putting a strain on my family situation. On
Right.
top of it's hard to maintain a household. Like I have hobbies outside of being a vet. My garden, my lawn was getting out of control. And, I found that amount of time away and back home, I could keep everybody happy that way on top of myself. And it's not that being a traveling vet is not for everyone. I'm just at a point in my family situation that this works for me. I couldn't have done that when my daughter was younger, but.
How far away do you have to travel? Like, are you kind of local to where you live, or is it pretty kind of all over the place?
So fun fact, I looked back on last year. I was in 7 different states last year.
Okay.
So I do have some in my home base, which is Wisconsin, but generally I'm out of the state.
Okay. Well, I think it's still an ideal schedule, that you've created. And I'm sure, we may talk a year from now, 2 years from now, and you've even evolved more. That's the hope, is that you're striking that right balance where everything is feeling good. I think your story is just a great example of, taking calculated risk, getting control over your career, your time, your happiness, your family, and your finances. That's very important. Contrary to what some veterinarians have told me, I've actually been told I didn't go to vet school to make a lot of money. And I get that it's a passion thing. It's a, caring about animals thing, but we do have to make money. We have to make money and take care of ourselves for today and for our future. What would you say to someone who maybe is feeling stuck in their career and they have a traditional role, but would dream of doing something that offers what you have, which is, more personal and financial freedoms?
So yeah, I would definitely kind of say, if they're having those feelings, they really need to take the time to kind of self-reflect, because nobody knows yourself better than you and what makes you tick. And, for me, I get a lot out of helping others. So this makes me feel really great to go to a facility and help these teams out that are shorthanded. Like I get so much reward in just being that helper.
Right.
So that, that's part of what I do. But, so kind of self-reflect on what really makes you feel good at the end of the day. And then the great thing about vet med is we have all these little niches you can get into with our degree. Like
right.
You may not be the expert at it yet, but if you put your heart and soul in it and say, I could say, I really want to do equine medicine at this point. Do I want to? No, but
right.
I could with my degree. So, if you've got this passion or this love and you've kind of just like, oh, I really think it could be better. Or you think in your practice, what are you missing that you think you could provide? And then make a plan, start saving, because I get that stress of not having that salary paycheck anymore. So start saving, develop that plan, and go for it. I would have never, I think I look at the blessing in disguise the non-compete had on me, and I'm actually thankful for it now, because it pushed me where I probably wouldn't have gone. Because I did feel trapped. But I started to develop that plan and took those next steps.
Right. I read a quote recently. You may have heard it before. Pressure is a privilege, and it's in the U.S. Open building in California somewhere. But anyway, it's kind of the same thing there. That pressure pushed you into something that you probably, if you just stayed the course and that original plant didn't close, you would have been probably still doing that and had a happy career. Yes, but this is exponentially happy.
Oh, this is my absolute calling. I
Yeah.
keep telling people, I'm like, I found my calling.
Yes, that's so good. So good. Well, just kind of to wrap it up, I really just think that your story is a testament to just opportunities that can arise if we're looking for them and we're willing to take that step, and try to find that unique thing that would make you happy and have this life fulfillment for sure. Is there any final question or any final piece of advice that you could give? I know you just kind of covered that a little bit, but is there anything else, especially maybe for women who aren't so eager to be entrepreneurs, or maybe the mothers out there who like, man, I'm missing my kids. I want to do both. It's hard to wear both hats. Is there any closing considerations that you could advise, when someone's wanting to change their career path other than what you've just stated?
Again, if you've got that feeling that you're not happy, you've got to know that's showing up in other places at home. And I get the self-confidence thing as a woman. I get the mom guilt. Believe me, I was a full-time working mom, so I get the mom guilt. And if you don't take this chance, you're not going to stand a chance. You're going to stay miserable in what you're doing. And we only get one shot at this. You may as well take that chance, take the risk, and go for it.
So good. So good. Those are some good quotes. That's some good advice. Awesome. So thank you so much, Kathy, Dr. Carrier, for sharing your story and being so open and authentic about it. We appreciate that. That's what this community needs. That's what this podcast is all about, is helping people. Obviously, we want to help them financially, but we want to help them in all aspects of life because, money doesn't make happiness. But I'll tell you one thing, the lack of it causes some problems. And so hopefully you've inspired people today. And so, if you are listening and Kathy's inspired you, Dr. Carrier's inspired you, please find her. I know she's at CarrierRx. She's on LinkedIn. I think is kind of the biggest way to find her. So Catherine Carrier on LinkedIn. And also you can go to the website for CABS, Comparative Animal Behavior Solutions. And we'll put all those connections in our show notes for today. But I'm so grateful to know you and to hear your story.
Thanks again for having me, Marcia.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Uh-huh.
That was a really good conversation, ladies. I enjoyed it very much. And, I listening to it, I was reminded of the fact that, something I was told really early on in my life is you are not going to be able to control what happens to you. It's an illusion if you think you're in control. But what you can control, and what Kathy's a great example of, and congrats and props to you, Kathy, is you can't control how you react to them. And, excellent. And you should be applauded for doing just that. Terrific stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Marcia, for folks who are listening to this podcast who are thinking that you might sound like somebody they want to have a conversation with or get to know a little bit better or run some ideas past, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. My website, an easy way to find my website is Meet with Marcia. And just remember, Marcia is spelled Marcia, like the infamous Marcia. And my office phone number is 205-795-2013. And I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, all those good places. You can find us and information. And of course, you can go to any place you listen to podcasts. We're on Apple Music, Spotify, and so forth to find us.
You're easy to find and a good listen when found. So yes, so those of you who are listening to this podcast for the first time, who are not yet subscribers, be a subscriber. Just reach out and hit the follow button. That's really easy to do. And the one thing that I would ask is that if you like this podcast, tell people about it. Word of mouth promotion is very appreciated, and we would very much appreciate it as well.
Absolutely.
Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker on behalf of Marcia and everybody behind Making Hay. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen today and to remind you that you can go out today and make today a great day or not. The choice is yours. Use it wisely. Until next time.